So we were talking about last session, how we're in this state as animals of seeking out certainty to feel safety. Does that ring a bell?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And our discomfort around not knowing what's going to happen induces all kinds of strategies that we use. We either try to fill in the space because we don't want the pause to be there, or we distract ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we see this, these are very simple things to see just when we stop doing what happens. And oftentimes we jump over the discomfort and we're directly in the behavior of checking the phone, for example. Or, maybe I'm in conversation with somebody and there's a pause and I don't know what to do. So I'll fill in that space, right? It's very quick and it's very innocent also. But if we were to do a study of these kinds of behaviors, which are oftentimes unconscious habitual behaviors, I think that what we would find at the root of it is our discomfort around being with not doing. Because when we're just in the being, we don't know what's going to happen next. And our default is that we direct our experience. Our default is that we get involved. And so when there is time and space where all of a sudden we catch ourselves, where we're not directing our experience, it feels a little ungrounding. And then the conditioning kicks in and we do something about it. And what we gain from this is we gain the sense of predictability. We know what's going to happen next because we initiated an action. What we lose through this experience is actually being with what's happening. We jump ahead. So it's not good or bad. It's a question of choice. Where do we want to be? And if we're in habit, if we're in conditioning, and we're not even noticing that we're doing this, if there's not even consciousness, then that choice, that freedom to choose is not available. And so this is okay. This is something that we do. This is definitely an invitation for investigation as to what's your go-to strategy, or how do you relate to being with not knowing. Also, last session, a couple of things came up around decision making, because decision making is how we cope with uncertainty. Like, how do I know that this is the thing that I'm into or not? How do I know if I should leave my job or not? How do I know if this is a right fit? If we stop to think about it, all points of our day, what we're doing continuously is making decisions. Some of it is unconscious because it's just become habituated. But from the moment we come into consciousness in the morning, we're already deciding, what am I going to wear? What am I going to eat? Where am I going to go? How, we're kind of planning, or we're projecting into the future, right? And all of this is part of it in need because of the routine that we happen to be in. But a lot of it is unconscious. It's just happening. And the parts that start to rise to consciousness is when those decisions are a little bit riskier, meaning that the stakes are a little higher. And this is where oftentimes we can spin out, because there's this unspoken pressure that we need to know and we need to do something about it. And yet, there's not enough information available in that moment or in that time. So, of course, the mind gets involved, right? Because we're dealing with uncertainty. We're dealing with, what do I do now? And maybe we'll come up with a pros and cons list. Maybe we'll go and we'll check with other people and hear their opinion and kind of get a sense, right? We start getting kind of locked in the story of all of these hypothetical scenarios, and all of that's fine. And all of that's healthy. We want to have some of that. But I think that what we sometimes overlook is the question that's being asked. And depending on what the scope of the question is, it's either appropriate or not appropriate for the mind to become involved. And so what do I mean by that? Well, if it's a big question, like, should I leave this job or not? That is too big for the mind to be able to come up with a reliable decision. And what is the response to the nervous system? The nervous system freaks out and starts spitting out all of these different possibilities and variables. And what happens to us is we get caught in all of those, and it just perpetuates a state of dysregulation. And so the question is, how do we address these large decisions? Well, what we need to do is we need to reframe the question so that they're smaller questions, so that we're just getting bite-sized information that will give us a bigger sense, or that will contribute towards us having enough information to know how to answer the big question. So it's kind of like, I'll use the analogy that the way we're living our lives is we're walking through the fog. And what ultimately we're wanting to know is how to get to the other side of the fog. And how do we know what direction to travel as we're going through the fog? It's not by thinking about what's on the other side of the fog and how to get there. It's really about taking one step forward and looking around and sensing and letting the system take that in, where it will give information about what direction for the next step should I take. And so I take that next step forward. And once again, I open myself up to receive the information that happens to be around me. I let the system digest that. And at some point, it will spit out what's the next step that I should take. And slowly, 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 we start building our projection towards where we are going to end up arriving at. This is something that the mind can handle. It can handle small decisions. This also takes the pressure off of having to know, because we can't know. We can't know because we don't have enough information. And how does that show up? It shows up as doubt, or it shows up as confusion. Why do we have doubt? Why are we uncertain? Because there's variables that have not been resolved or revealed. Why do we feel confused? There's a lack of clarity once again. It's too soon. There's not enough information. Now, the mind might think, but I already know that this is not good for me and I shouldn't be doing this. And what I really need to do is leave my job or whatever. It doesn't matter what the mind knows. The whole system needs to know. And when the system knows, there is a moment of clarity that the answer comes with a level of certainty that's unshakable. There is no longer a need to justify or explain or to understand. It just arises. We just know. And I'm saying this because I feel that we put so much pressure on ourselves to get it right, to know where we're heading, to be able to make decisions about something that's far into the future. And it's almost like we're setting ourselves up for an unrealistic task. And then on top of that, we will shame ourselves for being in doubt or shame ourselves for not moving fast enough or coming up with a decision. We add on to the pressure, which kind of spins us up further, which makes it harder for there to be the clarity or the awareness that we need to be able to know. And so, how do we navigate uncertainty? We navigate it by first resourcing ourselves. Because if we don't have a nervous system that is regulated, meaning not over aroused or overstimulated, if we don't have a certain level of relaxation and alertness, consciousness can't be there. So at the foundational level, well, I don't know the answer to my question, or I don't know what direction I can be moving in. What I do know is that I can start working on the conditions to have a more regulated nervous system. That's doable. That's wise action. And so I can work on creating those conditions so that clarity is more available. And then what do I do? And what I do is I take in the information around me, not cognitively, but from an embodied place. This is not necessarily all conscious. What that means is I make full contact with the moment if I can handle it. And I let that land and I let that digest and I let it go. I let go of the need to know. I need it without the expectation. So I pose a question and then I drop it. And what posing the question does is it orients the attention towards the direction of where we are interested in seeing. What we do when we drop the needing to know the answer is we allow space and we allow the system to on its own integrate without adding more pressure, which once again sends me out into dysregulation. And then surprisingly, the answer to the next step will pop up. And again, this is something that I encourage you to try. Don't take my word for it. So I'm just kind of speaking from what my experience is. Out of the blue, doing something mundane. Maybe I'm washing the dishes. An answer comes up. How do I know that it's the answer for that moment? Well, I know because there's no explanation attached to it. There's just a certainty. Right? So I'm not sure about leaving the job, but like, oh, there's this website that my friend mentioned to me that has these job listings around, environmental things that I'm really interested in. Oh, but I don't have the qualifications for that. Or, oh, that's never going to give me enough income. Oh, right. So the mind gets involved again. It's just like, just drop it. Let me just go check out that website. And I go and check it out. Maybe I get curious. Maybe I get interested. Maybe there's positions I never considered to try out, but I'm noticing the biofeedback of my body has shifted. And now there's interest and there's enthusiasm and there's energy that's available. That is information as well. That's the impact. So we try something out, like an experiment, like a lab, or life is a lab. And then you notice what's the effect. And if the effect is brightness, if the effect is lightness, excitement, oh, cool, there's this crazy, job out there available up in the Arctic surveying birds. Oh, but I don't qualify for that. And I'm only have a bachelor's degree, and there's probably other grad students that will take that. They're just like, okay, just for fun, what would happen if I just send a cover letter over there and a resume? There's no expectation. I'm not going to get it anyways. And maybe I'll just apply to all these other places. And then you let it go. Right? It's just like the process itself for me was entertaining. The excitement about like a potential possibility, even though I don't think I qualify or whatever. And even organizing the resume and the cover letter now is not coming from a doing, like I have to write my resume and my cover letter and have to send it to all of these places. It's just like, no, I mean, just for fun. And because it's low stakes, I'm not going to get it anyways. Maybe I'm going to write a really wacky cover letter about what I really want to say, not what they expect me to say so that I can get this job, but like why this intrigued me. And I drop it and I move on to what's next in the moment. And so that I'm more open and I'm more receptive. And what happens when I'm not narrow or fixated on wanting an outcome is that all of a sudden the awareness is broader and I'm able to notice opportunities that I might have not noticed before. And they might not be even opportunities related to what I thought I was looking for. They're just things I start to become intrigued about. And I kind of go in that direction and I notice what the impact is of that direction. A friend is talking about that she's going to do a workshop in nonviolent communication. I'm super interested in that. And like, what if I gave a workshop? Oh, what if I were to just put myself out there and send an email out and let people know that, hey, this is a passion that I have and I'm going to do it for free. I don't even want it for money. Just do it for free. I like teaching mindfulness. Right. And I get a response and they want the workshop and I do it. And it's low stakes. I'm not putting any pressure on myself. And somebody in the audience of that workshop really likes what I did and invites me to talk somewhere else. Right. So you can see that what's going on over here is that my question that I had is like, what am I going to do next? Maybe. Right. Or I need a new job. The question points the orientation of the attention to start kind of focusing in that area, but it's not fixated or narrow. It's just an orientation for navigating. And what happens is that I can go and I can experiment with small, low stakes actions, and then I drop it. And I have no idea what's going to germinate in the future. I had no idea that the person that I sent the cover letter to the Arctic saying that I wanted to do that was actually going to contact me back and ask me, can you work out of a helicopter and can you camp out in the Arctic? And can you poop in a bag? That was the question. I was like, yeah, I can do that. I'm like, okay, so you're going to go through this training program and we'll see how it goes, right? Life starts to become fun because once again, I had no idea about these potential avenues. Because it's low stakes, why don't I just ask for the most absurd thing possible? And guess what? These absurd things that we ask for can actually potentially happen once they're out of our head and they're out in the world. So how do we navigate through uncertainty? Is we focus on the moment. We focus on what's in front of us. And the attitude is that of playfulness. There's not a whole lot of expectation and of openness and receptivity. And the small risk is in engaging in something that we thought, oh, it's not going to work anyways. But it's a small risk. It's tiny. But the potential outcome for that can be tremendous.